Hello, this is Steve, your YouTube English teacher, with another B2 C1 class. And we're looking at B2 Reading Part 7, C1 Reading Part 8, where you have different sections of a text and you have to identify the ideas or the information and say which section contains that. Key skill here will be scanning for info. So I've made an example activity like this. Then we're going to really think about how to use these texts, really pay attention to a text and get the most out of it. With some use of English, and then also make your own. It's so easy now to make your own text and take control of your learning to really master this part of the exam. So let's get into this. I started with a little speaking in my private classes, so it's like a speaking part 3. Topic for today's class is going to be dogs, pets. So this is sort of a bit B1 where you've got pictures instead of comments, but it's a nice question. Talk together about the challenges that the owners of these pets might face. And you know how to do this. You speak for a maximum of 20 seconds each. You make your clear point and you say, owning a Rottweiler could be a little bit dangerous. You need to train them very carefully or else they might attack someone. Don't you agree? Yes, I agree. I'd rather have a cute little cat because then you can stroke them while they sit on your lap in a cozy winter afternoon, and that would be lovely. Don't you think? And so on and so on and so on. Discussing the different options. Pause the video, do your speaking. If you're in a class, do it, take it seriously. Speak English, you don't get so much of an opportunity to do this. Practice it and do it. There's your speaking to start that I was doing in my classes. And they start with the questions, which is maybe not the best way of doing it. As we can see, you have your questions first, which text mentions, and then you have your 4, sometimes 5 or 6 for C1 texts. I think it's better to read the text quickly first because the questions may just serve as a distraction. I think it's better to understand the text in general first. So we've got our 4 texts here about 4 different dog breeds, all of which I have owned and have their own charm each, of course. And then your 10 questions to say which text mentions each specific bit of information or idea by implication, this kind of thing. This will be in the description so you can read it and try and do it yourself. And in a minute we're going to go through the answers. As we said, technique for this part of the exam. Read it first quickly, so you can say, okay, this one's about border collies, there's something about their history with sheep, something about how they control the sheep, what they look like with their coat, smooth coat, intelligence, training them, they learn quickly, okay. And then the same for the rest of them. Then go back to your questions, and this is where you need to slow down and think, okay, a dog with a skill that shows how well adapted it is to its native area. So I'm looking for skills. Typical thing of underlining keywords in the question. I'm looking for something about native area, where it's from, the region, these kind of words. And I'm looking for something that fits perfectly, because there's going to be distractions. Quick example for this first one before we go into the answers. If you think about a husky, you're probably thinking, a husky is well adapted to its native area, isn't it? It's got a thick coat, and it mentions this. It's got a thick double coat that successfully insulates against extreme cold. So it's well adapted to its area. But is a thick double coat a skill? Not really, is it? That's not going to be, you could maybe argue, but there's a better answer. There's going to be a better answer somewhere. So it's that typical Cambridge thing of, that's maybe right, but you're not getting the correct answer, you're getting the best answer. So anyway, read it, like I said, read it quickly, scan, get the information, then try and find your key words, your key ideas in each text, and let's go through the answers. So we should have number 1, obviously it's not C because we just said that, it was in fact B, the Andalusian hound or the podenco, which can jump, and this is a skill. Number 2, working well alone, we have A, it functions with minimal guidance. Well, function, work, minimal guidance, alone. The historical achievement, what were you looking for? You were maybe looking for years, dates, historical, names of people and places. And we had a famous serum rum run to Nome in 1925, which is a very interesting thing if you read the Wikipedia article on it. Number 4, we could do the same thing. The keyword here, other animals. So we were looking for something about other animals, and we should see in A, we mentioned sheep, we mentioned livestock. And the border collie can intimidate and direct livestock, so it interacts with other animals. Livestock meaning farm animals. Number 5, a natural instinct, that is going to be B. The natural instinct was the strong prey drive, as in they want to catch prey, they want to hunt. So training is essential. It should be counteracted by training. The genetic history, this question I quite like because it's more of an implication one. What are we talking about if we're talking about genetic history? We are talking about things like their ancestry. So while there's not really a direct synonym here, which sometimes you're just looking for a synonym, here it's just, well, if it mentions their ancestry of different breeds, like a yellow retriever and the extinct Tweed water spaniel, then this is talking about their genetic history. So it was D. A dog that gets on well with people and other dogs. That was the little trick there, because it mentions sociable dogs for pretty much all of them, but and other dogs, that's huskies, as they have a pack instinct, which means they're sociable with humans and their canine peers, other dogs. That is a synonym, isn't it? Dog events, that was an easy one. Canine sports. A dog with eyes that transmits feelings. Again, they all mention their eyes and their nice eye colours and their intelligent eyes, but which one is transmitting feelings? It was the golden retriever with the expressive eyes. If it's expressive, then it's transmitting feelings. And cultural artifacts, what are cultural artifacts? You should be looking for things like sculptures, paintings, pottery, and of course it was B, it has been depicted in Iberian art. So B, the Polenco, the depictions in Iberian art. So there we go, that is how you do reading part 7 for B2, part 8 for C1, scanning the text, finding the key ideas, thinking basically which one says the same thing, by synonym or by implication. But it's not going to finish there though, because like we said, I want you to really make the most of these texts. So close the window or delete the text with the text there. And when we have a short text like this, 150, 200 words for each one, this is a perfect length for a use of English. So I've taken the Border Collie's text and I've removed 8 typical B2 C1 grammatical words, your in, your on, your collocations, your verb tenses, all these things that are typically tested. Pause the video, complete the text with the blanks. Then in a minute we will go through the answers and explain them. And let's go through and explain them. There's also just a lot of great vocabulary in here, to be heralded, to be celebrated. Like a herald is like a flag or like the symbol of your house, this kind of thing. So the epitome, as in the perfect example. Lovely word that you could use in your writing. But anyway, you are heralded as, because it's like celebrated as. Number 2, the clue was rely, wasn't it? Farmers relied heavily on these dogs, because you rely on something, you depend on something. Number 3, their ability made them indispensable. Something makes something adjective. This made me happy. It's basically the same sentence, but much more complicated, isn't it? This makes me happy. Their ability to function with minimal guidance made them indispensable. Then we have the gaze, the eye, okay? Renowned, you are renowned for something. This again is another nice vocab family. You're famous for something, which most people would probably know. You're also renowned for something, is the same idea. So it's a nice way of thinking about vocabulary, patterns that you can remember. And number 5 is the same. You often see on the exam, combined and then a blank. And paired and then a blank is the same. Combined with, paired with. Their intelligence paired with their energy levels means that, so paired with, combined with, coupled with is the same idea. This idea of common collocations with similar meanings. Number 6 is a nice one. Pick. I guess a lot of people got it. I don't know if they know why they got it. It's pick up, because pick up in this context is more about learning, isn't it? Like when you pick up a language by learning it naturally. Well, Border Collies pick up commands. They learn commands. They learn them swiftly, meaning quickly, of course. Number 7, this one's an easy one, I think. You are willing to do something. Willing to is a collocation. It's also just an adjective, isn't it? So it's followed by the infinitive. You are willing to meet their high demands. But it's a nice expression. If you're willing to do something, you're ready, available, happy to do it. And number 8, probably the most difficult one. They have destructive behaviours which stem from boredom. Stemming from means coming from, as in the stem of the plant. the flowers come from the stem, they stem, they grow. The origin, so stem from, come from, a nice varied way of saying that. So there's your 8 questions for part 2. As always, 5 out of 8 is 60%, so that's what you should be aiming for. I'd put these on a difficult B2, probably C1 level. Most of these questions I'd see on a C1 exam. And we can do the same thing with part 3. This time it's the Huskies text, and as regular subscribers will know, I didn't write these texts. I got them from ChatGPT with instructions, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the great thing about ChatGPT is it's so good for use of English part 3. It just throws out these compound words, these prefixes and suffixes. I could have made 20 from this text. I chose the 8 most typical B2, C1 words that you'll see, but there's so many you could. Even on the first line, look, snow, snowy, companion, companionship, historically, history, physically. There's so many you could do. But pause video, answer these part 3 questions, transform the words so that it fits the sentence, thinking about prefixes, suffixes, use the word on each line. You know how to do this by now. And here are the answers. Huskies are synonymous with Siberia and Alaska, meaning when we think Huskies, we think Siberia, Alaska. It's the same idea. It's talking about synonyms, synonymous. Number 2, the best answer is survival. One student, when I did this with them, said surviving, which I guess is grammatically correct, but it sounds better as a noun for me. Their history is intertwined with survival in harsh conditions. Sounds more natural to me because I think that is the noun, so it sounds better. Number 3, Disney fans will get this one easily, won't they? Frozen landscapes, freeze frozen. It's an irregular past participle. And number 4, a common one, illness. The story of Nome, like we said. Number 5, very typical one. How does it insulate them? Successfully. So we need the adjective, successful, then the adverb, successfully. Number 6, a little bit irregular here, maybe. From muscle, they have a muscular build. That's going to be the adjective from muscle. And number 7, this one's a bit easier, energetic. And number 8, a very common one on your C1 exam, expert. Someone who is an expert possesses expertise. Their expertise as escape artist is infamous, meaning notorious, famous for the wrong reasons. So you need a good fence. I didn't find that to be the case. Our husky does not try and escape. Maybe he's just too lazy. But then he also loves lying on the patio in the sun. So what do we know? I'll get that in a minute. Right, that's pretty much it. And as I said, I made this exam. Wow, how can you make an exam? Aren't only the official people from Cambridge allowed to do this? No, anyone can do it, especially now we have access to ChatGPT. So what I think a good way of doing it is, it has to be something you're interested in. So think of something you're interested in, which for me this week was dog breeds. I find that quite interesting. Think of your hobbies, your sports, whatever you're interested in. And then think of connected but distinct categories. So as in something where there's 4 things where they're going to have lots of similarities, but enough differences to be able to ask questions and make a clear answer for each point. Then these are the instructions that I gave, the exact instructions. Remember, the more specific your instructions, the better. Pretend you are a dog trainer sharing facts and opinions about specific things, history, features, behaviors of these 4 dogs. 700, 800 words you're going to be wanting for B2C1, so there's enough detail, and that's the length in the exam. And then you've got your text, and the texts are normally pretty good if it knows how to write. The problem is the questions. The questions are not good. So I asked it to write questions like this, and I even said, please make it difficult, make them abstract, test their understanding. But the questions are too easy. The questions end up just being, which dog comes from a region of Southern Europe? Yeah, then the text says it's from Southern Europe. It's too easy. The questions are good for a basic idea, but then, well, as I said, you need to change them so they're actually difficult. And this is really important, because if you can change it, make a good question, change it, you understand what they want in this part of the exam. You understand how to express an idea in different ways, how to use synonyms that express the same idea, how to imply this piece of information based on what you've said. And that's what they're going to test. So making your exam, I think, is the best way you can practice for doing the exam. After you've done 100 of your own, start making your own, start really understanding how it works. And then obviously do the same for use of English part 2 and part 3 like I did, which is actually a lot easier. You just delete the typical ones that you've seen before and think, if it's rely, then yeah, I'll delete on, because rely on, those kind of things. And for part 3, the root words, identify a word that's been transformed, give me the root, make notes with your families of words and all these kind of things. Right, there we go. That's enough for this week. Hope that's useful. Stay tuned for another one next week. Goodbye.